All right, everybody, welcome again to another episode of Spoiler Country. Today on the show, we have author Maurene Goo. Maurene has been writing the new Silk comic book from Marvel, and now she's here to talk about it, as well as her time writing YA and doing all the other cool stuff. So, Maurene, how you doing?
I'm good, and thank you for having me.
It was great to have you. So today, while I was prepping for the interview, I was singing Jolene, but Maurene to that tune, just because I make up songs with people's names on it. Oh yeah. So how you doing?
I am doing pretty good, actually, all things considered. How about you?
I'm good. It's beautiful outside today. Things are starting to finally maybe get better. I'm in Birmingham, Alabama, so I'm sure it's much different than LA.
Yeah, we just officially opened. I don't know if Alabama opened up a while ago, but we just opened up yesterday as far as no more mask mandate and full capacity for restaurants and stuff like that. It's I went to a movie and didn't wear a mask, but then I actually put it on in the theater because I was like, I don't know, I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's still not quite. We're not quite, for me, it's going from masked and careful to now we're free. It just is a little jarring. So I'm easing into it, but it's, our COVID numbers are good and it feels pretty optimistic, and
I'm starting to feel optimistic too. Yeah.
Me too.
We've been open for a while, but I'm still wearing my mask going into places. I don't I'm vaxxed.
Smart.
Yeah.
Me too. I'm vaxxed too. I mean, there's still the variants, and honestly, I just feel whatever your comfort level is, you should just do. Who cares what other people think,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You should protect yourself if you want to, and it's nobody's business.
My wife and I I don't think we've even eaten inside a restaurant in over a year. We're going to our first show on Friday for see a friend's band play. But so it'll be different, and I'm looking forward to it. But at the same time, it's going to be weird getting around people. So
yeah, I've gone to restaurants a few times because I got vaccinated a while ago, so I've had more opportunities earlier to see people and feel comfortable going indoors. But yeah, when you first are around a lot of people, you're because we've been protecting ourselves for so long. It's it just feels alarming at first, and then it just feels normal immediately because all of our lives up until this point we've been around people, so that kind of just kicks in where you're oh yeah, this is fine.
Oh yeah.
But, yeah. Well, I hope you have fun.
I'm looking forward to it, and cautiously optimistic. I'm excited to drink a beer somewhere other than
else, right?
Yeah,
not your porch, not your living room.
But yeah. So we're not here to talk about that though. We're here to talk about you.
Yes.
We're here to talk about Silk. I wanted to call it Silk Spectre. Different company, different character. Here to talk about Silk and your books. You actually started. I'm assuming you started as a prose writer, correct? For YA.
I'm still writing YA. So yes, I've published 4 YA novels. I've published a few short stories, and then Silk was my first comic.
That's awesome. Before we get into the comic stuff, because I'm really interested in seeing how you went from writing YA to writing for I guess almost YA for kind of the same audience. But it's sequential art, so sequential storytelling. Yeah. But how did you get into what made you decide to be a writer in the first place?
I've always loved books, so I think a lot of writers have this background where we're big readers and we love to read everything, and then usually love of reading can lead to love of writing. And I liked writing. I didn't, a lot of authors, if you talk to them, you ask them what's your history with writing, and they're I wrote my first little book when I was 7 years old. That was not me. I didn't really think about writing books until I was an adult. Yeah, because I liked writing, but it was in school I would write essays and do well on that, and then I joined journalism, and I was a journalist, and I blogged, and I did a lot of that kind of writing, but it never occurred to me to write books until I was until I applied to graduate school. Actually, I applied to several graduate programs, and one of them was a creative program for children's literature.
Oh, wow.
And I just like did it on a whim, to be honest. It wasn't like that was my goal in life to write books, but I loved books growing up, right? That's my background. And those books that I loved as a kid never left me. And so I wanted to work in children's book publishing. And so I thought, oh, I'm going to be an editor. But then I saw this program to write children's books, and I was like, like, is that something I could do? And I wrote a sample, and it was the first time I wrote like a piece of fiction that other people would read. And I got into that program, but I decided not to go because I thought it wasn't practical. And I decided to go study publishing, and because I thought I would be an editor instead of a writer. It's just funny because then eventually my whole path led me back to writing anyways. So that until I worked on that, I hadn't written fiction really. And then it's weird. Like I didn't have like the drive or the goal to be a children's book writer at any point in my life. It was all stuff that kind of happened because I kept writing this book because it was so fun. I had a lot of fun writing it. And then after I got a job and moved back to LA after grad school, I was like, I'm going to keep writing this book. It's so fun. And then I had a friend who knew I was writing it, and she's a graphic novelist. And so she was just interested, like, oh, can I read this? It sounds fun. And I was like, okay. And that was the first time like, a friend of mine, someone I knew actually read a creative writing that I've done, and she loved it and she gave it to her agent. And then her agent eventually became my agent. So it kind of happened like luck a little bit and me just being like open to it. And then I published my first book in 2013. And until I always tell people this, until I got the phone call from my agent who said, we sold your book, or like there's somebody wants to buy your book, I didn't actually think I would ever be a published author. It wasn't like something that I said out loud or even like really entertained that much in my own brain. And I think it's because I always thought, oh, it's because I didn't know I wanted to be a writer. And that was my story for a long time. But the past few years, the more I talk about this, I'm like, I think I did actually want to be a writer, but I didn't want to say it out loud because it was kind of, the dream was too big and like scary. And when you have like a really big dream like that you feel very vulnerable about, you don't always want to share it, So I think I even like hid it from myself. So and then once I sold that first book, I kept writing books and, the validation kept coming. So then I just kept doing it. And now it's like, oh, okay, that's my job somehow.
When were you able to say like, I'm a writer? Like you're at a party, somebody says, hey, what do you do for a living? I'm Maurene and I'm a writer. Has that happened yet?
Yeah. Yes, it has. I do feel comfortable saying that now. It's funny. It's one of those things that whenever like, especially kids, when they ask me like, I want to be a writer. And I say, well, if you write, then you're a writer. It's true. If you write stuff, then you can call yourself a writer. But there is that hesitation there because you feel like, oh, like you don't want to be like presumptuous or like, again, you're kind of self-conscious about claiming that status or that dream of yours. So yeah, in the beginning, I would say that it took maybe my second book. And then I eventually quit all my day jobs. And I would say like in 2017 is when I quit my day jobs.
Oh, wow.
And yeah. And so that's when I felt like when people ask me, what do you do? I'm like, well, I'm an author. Like that's the first thing I can say. And I feel like, yeah, that's what I do. And that's how I make money. And that is what I spend my whole day doing. So then I felt comfortable. But I do tell people like, just call yourself a writer. It's fine. It's not bragging. It's not diluted. It's what you do. If somebody spends all day or, a big chunk of their day doing knitting, but that's not their job. If someone's like, are you a knitter? You're like, yeah, I'm a knitter. It doesn't matter if you're not like a full-time knitter. You know what I mean? So I just think there's a bit of like status and mystique and all this like kind of even glamour. If you knew the life of a writer is like the least glamorous thing ever. We're just like back. Yes. I pinched a nerve in my neck, sweatpants, 17 bottles of like drinks here. It's not glamorous. So anyways, yeah, that's kind of when I felt comfortable, but I think people should feel like they can own that if they write.
Awesome. As far as your writing goes, you've recently had a life change. How has that affected your writing, and how do you get around it?
We should reveal what that life change is. It sounds so mysterious. I had a baby. It's like, I am an alien.
Especially when you're like a creative person too. That's massive.
And it's one of those things where, I've had tons of friends who are authors who are parents and moms specifically. I know it's coming, I know things will change, things will be harder. You'll have to adjust, but you actually don't know until you actually have the kid, I think. I had no clue it would be this intense. But so I had Alexander about 10 months ago. And in the beginning, it was like, I'm not going to work. Obviously the newborn time, I'm sure you remember, it's like survival, right? Survival for those 3 months. And then, but I personally am kind of a workaholic, and the way that I re-energize myself is work and like human engagement. It's not resting. I felt like, okay, I want to feel like myself again. I want to feel like a part of the world. I need to go back to work. So I started kind of throwing myself back into work, probably a little too early, but I did it. And the way that I did that was I had full-time help from my mom. I don't know how else you could do it. And it was during the pandemic. I mean, it's still the pandemic, but in the thick of it, when, nobody was nannying or daycaring or anything. And my mom has helped us with the baby since day one, because she lives like 10 minutes away from us. And we were all just being really careful just to not see other people. We were just kind of like a little pod. And that's how I did it. And even then it's hard because you can hear him crying in the background. You're just tired because you don't sleep that much. And, the freedom of being a creative person without a child is something I can't stress enough, because you can just work all day, all night, not eat, not sleep, wake up at noon if you want to. Like, there's so much. And if you just have to plug away, you can just plug away. But you can't when you have a baby. It's
a whole other person that cannot do for themselves.
Yeah, cannot do for themselves. And not only that, like, even if I do have help, I want to be present, and be with my baby and spend time with him. So I have like a heart out every day, 5:30, whatever. Like, I cannot like work till 8:00. I could sometimes if my husband's like, sure, like, you're on a deadline, whatever. But it's one of those things where it's like a rare thing that I don't do all the time. So, and not only that, but so there's time is the big thing, the obvious thing. But then there's like, your brain is different to do creative work. And especially writing, in my opinion, like, you have to get into a headspace and be able to concentrate and not have, and I personally need like a buffer of time. I can't just squeeze in writing like, oh, I have 30 minutes while he naps. I'll just do like a little, it's like, I need to like have all this like mental space to be able to like dip back into it. And, and I don't have the same battery power that I used to have, so it's sometimes if you have to put a bit of your huge ambitions, creative ambitions aside, but it doesn't mean it's permanent. To me, it means like, oh, it's just like a little pause. And then we can go back when, baby's a little older or you have daycare or something. And at first it was really hard for me to accept that. I was just like, no, I can do it. I can still do everything. And then I came to a point where I was like, I cannot do it. I actually just can't. And that's okay. That is what being a parent is like. You've got to make sacrifices and shift your priorities. And I think I was just trying to be like, that doesn't apply to me. I can still do all the same thing. And it was just like a lesson, like, yeah, you can't. And that's okay.
Yeah.
It's not like a permanent state, And
you're constantly learning new things as a parent. And has there been any way for you that you've learned to get back into that creative space? Like, any shortcuts for you? Or is it just something that you're still working on?
It's a really good question. It is something I'm still working on, but the way I get into a creative space is leaving my house. So now that we're opening up more, that's really helpful. I used to work in coffee shops with my friends a lot before the pandemic. And I have this is my office. I'm lucky I have a space that's an office in my home, but I don't get really good work done. I'm going to lower my chair. There we go. I'm like bending over in this awkward position. So I've discovered that I can, if I leave my house, then I'm a little more like, I'm able to focus much better. I watch a lot of movies and TV shows and read a lot of books. So I'm constantly like filling my well of inspiration. That helps a lot. And, talking ideas out with my writer friends and my husband, he's a writer and a director. So I kind of just keep that flame alive, but it doesn't mean that I'm like putting a lot of pressure on myself to have these great moments of inspiration, but I keep myself open. And then, practically speaking, I will leave my house and I get work done way better that way.
That's awesome. One thing I've noticed about your YA books, there seems to be a musical theme there is with the titles.
Yes.
Was that a savvy editor or was that you?
I think it was me. I'm like making sure that I'm taking the proper credit. Yeah.
I love it.
First book, my first book it's called Since You Asked, and it's not a song title, but my second book, we had a real hard time thinking of a good title for that. We went through so much. I like fought with everybody in marketing and sales. Like I had like the first and only time I cried on the phone with my editor because I was so upset that, we couldn't think of a good title. And then I thought of, okay, what if I just do like a song title, and a song that I love is, I believe in a thing called Love by the Darkness.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, right.
So good.
Darkness. Because that song just makes you happy. Like you think of that song and you hear that the beginning of that song and you're like, oh, okay. It's joyful for me. It's not like the most popular song that every like teenager is going to know, but the few people who do know, they're like immediately super excited about that title. And I just loved it because it's like kind of long and specific. And so when you Google it, it's, you get the song, but you can also easily find my book. And then after that, when I had to think of the title for my second book, I thought, why don't we think of something like another song title? So like we can connect this. And so I did that for my second and third and fourth book. So second, third, and fourth book, I'll have song titles. I Believe in a Thing Called Love, which is a song by the Darkness. The Way You Make Me Feel, which is Michael Jackson. And Somewhere Only We Know, which is Keane. And so it was just a nice way to kind of like thematically tie my books together. Yeah. And it's fun, right? Because you have like an automatic association with these songs, and then there's like good vibes, I think, as the youth would say, good vibes.
I'm writing a comic, and each issue is named after a song from like the 60s. Oh, so it's fun.
It's really fun.
The second issue is going to be called Search and Destroy, which is a Stooges song.
Awesome.
But anyway, has that musical theme carried over to the book you're doing with Marvel, Silk?
No, I don't think. Nope. Silk is its own beast. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I don't think I have any real song type inspirations. Yeah, Silk was just like starting fresh. I thought of it as totally separate from my YA novel career, except that, there's clear like shared like overlaps of humor, a little bit of romance, a lot of like focus on relationships and emotions, and then like really fun, snappy dialogue, which is what I really like to write in my YA novels too.
Awesome. So how did you get into writing Silk to begin with? Did you have like a drive to want to write comics, or was it something that was offered?
The short answer is I was offered. Someone my editor at Marvel contacted me through email, and I was like, what? I kind of didn't believe it at first. Like, who is this person? Because it came through my website, not through my agent or anything. Yeah. He's just like, hey, I'm an editor.
That's like a Bush League move, Marvel. Come on, man, like, do better.
No, I think that's how comics is. They're way less, they're more informal. I don't think they usually go through agents and stuff. They're just like, it's fine. I love Jake. I'm glad he contacted me. But it was, I actually did have an interest in writing comics. It wasn't like a huge goal of mine because there's so much stuff going on, but I knew I wanted to try all different kinds of writing. So I have an interest in, writing screenplays, which I'm doing right now. I have an interest in writing graphic novel comic. And I also have always had like a visual, like an eye towards design. I used to be a graphic designer, and I told you my husband's a director, and
you have a good friend who is a graphic novelist. So I mean, you're around.
Tons. I'm around comics people. I'm around graphic novelists. So it's always been like in my life and on my radar. But it's one of those things where I didn't ever make the time to like to go after that. And then so when Jake emailed me, the timing was great because I had decided to take a break between writing YA novels because I had been pumping one out a year and I was really like kind of burnt out. So I was like, okay, what am I going to do? Maybe I'll work on like a script or a TV pilot or something. And then Jake emailed me and I was like, okay. And he didn't give me any details because it's like very secret. And he said, if you're interested in writing a comic, then you got to sign this NDA so I could tell you everything about it. And I was like, okay, cool. And then he told me, it's Silk. And I was like, yes.
Yeah, that's so rad.
Yeah, it was just like, yes, I will write this because perfect. It's exactly, I don't know if I would have written any other character, because it's a lot of time, more than you think. And I really felt like strongly like, oh, I do want to write like this Korean American superhero who's a girl in therapy. Amazing, and also
There's
I love
so much depth.
There's so much depth. And my favorite superhero in Marvel is Spider-Man, right? So I love all things Spidey. And so it's like, yes, I even like got to write a couple of like Spidey texts through this Silk run. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Were you able to take much from your YA writing and use it with your writing for sequential art or for sequential storytelling?
Yes, I surprisingly so. So like I mentioned, the dialogue is definitely probably the thing that shares most in common with my YA novels. I really like writing conversations between people. I really like using humor. I really like exploring, kind of showing how people are through what they say. So that is something that it has in common for sure. But there were a ton of differences too, right? Because I'm writing an adult character. I'm writing like action. I'm writing like cool, like demon creatures. I'm just totally out of my usual, because I don't even write fantasy. I write like contemporary realistic fiction about teenage girls in high school, like locker rooms and boyfriends, And then I go to that from like, okay, there's a demon god. So, but I love comics. I love action movies. So it was really like fun to be able to use that part of my brain. And I obviously also had a ton of help. I had friends who are into comics that helped me out. I had the editors, Jake and Lindsay were amazing. So it wasn't like I suddenly knew how to write this stuff, but I already had an interest in it. So it was fun. It was a fun opportunity.
And you're coming in with like a powerhouse team. Takeshi Miyazawa is, oh my gosh.
He's great.
Yes.
I write stuff and I'm like, who knows? And then he sends us the drawings and I'm like, what? This looks 1,000 times cooler than I described it. Yeah, he's great. And he's also just like a very nice person and very enjoyable to work with. And everybody was just so nice, because I'm like a first time comic writer and I wasn't sure. I'm sure I made a lot of mistakes. I'm sure I was annoying and frustrating at times, and nobody ever let me know. They were just really nice. And yeah, his art is so cool. And he also conveys a lot of the humor, that I try to put in there. And obviously with the action stuff, I'm like just trying my best. And then I will write like, Tech, I don't know, like make it cool. And then he does something way cooler. Cause I'm always like, she punches him.
Yeah.
And then he's like, okay, how about this? I'm like, oh, that's way better.
How has your relationship been with him as do you have like a dialogue with him as you write it? Or is it just like, Maurene types out the scripts, Takeshi draws it out?
It's actually the latter, which is I write it and then I send it to the editors, and the editors and I work on it together. And then it goes to TAC. And then, I didn't really know how comic writers and artists work together, because people ask me like, oh, did you do this the Marvel way? Which is the more collaborative with the artist and writer. And I'm like, oh, shoot. Like, I didn't know like that was the way of working together. I am used to just doing all the writing by myself, and then working with an editor. So it didn't even occur to me to kind of like do that collaborative work, but it seemed to be fine. And you know, the thing is, I also, when we got tax drawings in, I'm sorry, there's a more accurate word, and I always forget this stage. It's like the pencils, I think. Pencils?
Yeah.
When that's like the very first drawing stage. And whenever we get him in, I just look at it like, yay, cool. I wasn't like the critical. I wasn't even like, did he do the thing that I mentioned? Because to me, I'm like, if I read it, if I'm like looking at it and all makes sense with the story that I wrote, like if I can go along, I'm like, cool. That seems like correct. I don't feel like I need to go in there and be like, let me make sure he did exactly what I wanted him to do. Because to me, I'm like, he knows what he's doing. And half of this comic is visual, you know? And so I like to give him ownership over like what he wants to do.
Yeah. And it's like magic. It really is. I used to play music, and whenever you're playing with a band, it is the closest thing that I can kind of compare to like conjuring up something, just something
making something
deep
out of nothing.
Yes.
Yeah. And like working
feeling.
as a team. Yeah. Because you put this one piece in there and you're like, I think this is good. And then somebody else adds onto it and you're like, what? It's like, so, you know, it just like adds layers and depth. And then you're like, this is what it's like, you know, when you work with good people.
Have you enjoyed the collaborative aspect of it? Just like, because you're not just tip tapping away and then sending it over to somebody eventually. It's kind of a back and forth, because you're doing, how many issues is this series?
This is 5. So we have 3 out right now. The 4th is coming out next week, I think.
Yeah. The 24th.
Yeah. And then we get a bit of a break in July, and it comes out, the last issue comes out on August 4th. I love the collaborative aspect of it. It's really refreshing to not be the only one responsible for creating something. But it's also like, I am an extrovert. I like to work with people. I've had a lot of jobs in the past where I'm like a manager and I work on teams, and I really thrive in that kind of environment. So, and I love working with editors. Like a lot of authors, like, you know, they're more protective of their work than me. I don't know what that says about the stuff that I write, but I like it when other people are like, how about this too? Like when they give me ideas, I feel like it's just a dynamic that I enjoy. And I always feel like my stuff is so much better after other people have, you know, put their marks on it too. So I loved it. It was really fun. It just reminded me of, you know, I like being part of something together, and you work really hard and then it's like grueling and you don't know what it's going to be like. And then there's like this finished product at the end, which is why I used to like being in the high school newspaper. I used to work in publishing. I worked in books. So it's just really satisfying to see like a team effort come together, you know?
Yeah, I bet. So was there any particular like era of Spider-Man or any storyline from Silk that you kind of leaned on to do this 5-issue series?
No, not well. I definitely did my homework and went back and read all of the solo Silk issues. So there are 2 series that ran before this one in 2015 up to 2016 or 17, I think. One was shorter and one was really long. They're written by Robbie Thompson, and they're great. So I read all of those again to get a refresher on like her previous, like get inside Silk's brain and like what her issues were and how she's evolved as a person. And also just to be like, oh, okay, what kind of like obstacles and like what were her like what's the word I'm saying? Her challenges that she had to go through.
She's had some traumatic stuff happen too. So
yes, her origin story is like, you know, so I think it's brutal and it's super interesting. I wanted to kind of depart from that, not because out of disrespect, but because I felt like, okay, my strength as a writer isn't really like dark, heavy stuff. It's kind of emotional things that I make a little lighter and more fun. So I really wanted this version of Silk. It reminded me of what I like about early like Spider-Man comic. You know, Peter Parker's like kind of the light, like his like happy, optimistic kind of guy. I mean, that's why I love Spider-Man. I love Peter.
Yeah.
Like, he's so vulnerable and he's so sweet and he just cares about the people in his life so much. It's like all about the personal relationships. So and Silk had a lot of that in the previous runs where she cared about her family and protecting her coworkers and stuff. And so I'm like, I know that, okay, I can do that. Like, that's kind of that's like my specialty is like interpersonal relationships, and also like making Silk funny and like kind of giving her some room to like enjoy her life a little bit and grow from her therapy and grow from her traumatic experiences. It's still there, I referred to her being in the bunker a lot in that first issue, kind of to be funny, but also to remind people like, this girl has been through a lot, And so, yeah, I did read those. But I kind of wanted a fresh start with this. I didn't want to continue. And I don't think that Marvel wanted me to continue like old storylines. So it was kind of like, the only parameter they gave me, or parameters, were she is working for Threats and Menaces, this kind of news website like BuzzFeed, and she is going to be Jonah's bodyguard at night, by night. So reporter by day, bodyguard by night. That's all the info they gave me. And I was like, okay, cool. And then they said, okay, pitch. Like, it was me and a few other authors that they had approached about this. So they asked me to pitch them my idea for the story arc, and I did. And they picked it.
That's awesome. And they just kind of let you pick up what you wanted and run with it. And
I had a lot of freedom, and I got a lot of help as far as I'm like, I need a villain. Give me a villain, because I'm like, what's a villain that would fit this, and this? Because, I don't know. I like comics, but I'm not a comics person, and by far like a Marvel expert. So I would go to Marvel Wikipedia and be like, oh my God, I actually made a spreadsheet of every Marvel villain.
Oh, wow.
I was like, yeah. And then I like created a spreadsheet and I was like, okay, which one of these has these powers? And I put down their powers, and like, it was so nerdy, but I really wanted to feel like I picked the right villain that fit this. And then I was able to create a villain too. So Saya Ishii, she is a villain that I got to create from scratch, which was really cool.
That's awesome. And yeah, I honestly think Marvel has a lot of big plans for this character.
I hope so. I mean, yeah. I know that she's going to be in her own TV show that is being developed at the moment.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's wild. Mm-hmm. So it's awesome that you're able to kind of put your fingerprint on that character and make it, you're able to develop it more and give her just a little bit more backstory and make her just more alive. So
very honored to be able to do that. I'm really proud of being able to do it, and I'm proud of the story we came up with. And I just really, so far, the reader response has been so kind and excited. I don't know. I'm sure there's negative ones out there. I just don't see them. Luckily, I'm pretty good at like keeping that stuff away from me. But honestly, it's all been positive from my end. And I feel really like gratified. Like, it's just really nice. I hear from all kinds of people. Like, I hear from like, young women who are excited for a strong female character. And then I hear from Asian Americans who are like, wow, I've never seen, and then I hear from like really old dudes who used to love the original Spider-Man comics from the 60s and say, hey, I missed these kind of comics. And I'm so glad like Silk reminds me of like these old Spider-Man comics I used to read. Awesome. And yeah, and I'm like, like that makes me like super emotional.
Some old dude with a beard said I was good. I love it. So yeah, and that's okay. When I heard that Marvel was doing a Silk series, I was like, good. They need to. They need to get new readers in. Yeah. Because otherwise it's a bunch of dudes that look like me. And we don't need that for real. So
you've been keeping the torch lit.
Exactly. Yeah. I have 2 daughters. And the fact that they can now go down to the comic shop and go like, ooh, this looks like me. I want to read this book. Whereas when I was like growing up,
different stories for them. It's not just like they're the love interest or like wearing a outfit that looks like, how is that a superhero outfit?
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
looks
Yeah.
very cold. Yeah. So it's like nice, there's a variety.
Yes. Yes. There is a greater portion of comics that I collected in the 90s that are put away that I'm sure if they saw, like, namely like the X-Men comics with like the skin tight spandex and like the like thongs are not battle ready material. I'm sure they'd be like, Daddy, what the hell?
Yeah, some of those old issues you're like, oh boy.
Yeah.
They got like very like soap opera-y too.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I mean, I love it, to be honest. I love when it's like dramatic.
Yeah, and Claremont was great at that. Do you have any plans for after Silk is done? Do you have any more plans for writing for comics, even if it's like a graphic novel or something?
I have no concrete plans because I am just so kind of over. I have a lot of stuff on my plate at the moment, but I definitely do want to keep writing comics. I think this was such a great experience, and I have lots of ideas for other things. And Marvel, the people I've worked with at Marvel have been really great. They've been very awesome. Encouraging and, pretty enthusiastic and happy with how Silk is going. So I definitely want to. I just have there's nothing I can actually say at the moment because I haven't made any decisions on that yet. But yeah, I definitely want to.
Do you have like a white whale that you have to be able to write eventually? No,
I don't. Actually, I don't. I think in the past life, I would have said Spider-Man, but I feel like I wrote Silk, Yeah. I feel pretty happy with entering Spidey world that way. And I feel like, I would still enjoy writing Spider-Man. I would not say no to it, but I don't know. It's not the thing I have to write. And I also used to really love the X-Men. That was actually in the 90s, when I was like a teenager, I really liked X-Men, the cartoon. And that kind of was my introduction into Marvel. Other than Spider-Man, I read the comics as a kid, but, the cartoon was amazing. And then I got really into the X-Men movies were the first like Marvel movies that came out, and loved the first X-Men movie. And then, I also love X-Men as a concept, like not only the mutant thing, but like kids in a special gifted school, like all the drama, that setting to me is like perfect for, and I also love an origin story. So it's like, I love the whole X-Men, like how people find out their powers when they're, when they're kids. I love all of those. So I'd love X-Men, but honestly, I'm very open, and there isn't anything specific that I'm like, yes, that's what I want to write.
So, edit for the editors of the X Office, you guys.
Well, my old editor for Silk, Jake, he actually is now back in the X Office.
Oh, holy smokes. That's awesome. So now, you're writing Silk. You have 2 more issues to come out after this third one. And that's exciting. What is getting you through this? Like, what are you can't always create. What's inspiring you right now?
Oh, that's a really great question. I watch a lot of TV because I think TV is...
Like, what's your jam?
Oh my gosh. Well, right now, what am I watching? So I have like a whole thing. I like to watch like 30-minute like comedies with my son in the mornings. And then I watch like a serious show. So I just finished Mayor of Easttown. I don't know if you saw that, which is like the drama. Oh, I interviewed one of
the actresses from the show, and she was really cool.
Which one? They're all so great.
She was the mom of one of the characters on the show, and I cannot remember her name right now.
And her best friend from the basketball team?
Yes.
Okay. She was amazing. Sorry, I don't know her name either, but she was great.
She's from like Pennsylvania, I think. And so like she had the accent. Actually.
The accent. I know. I have my friend is he grew up in that area, and I was like, are these accents accurate? He's like,
oh yeah.
Yes, but sometimes they're over the top. He was like, Kate Winslet really like she likes to lean into it. Yeah, I loved Mary of Easttown. I'm also just started Loki. I mean, just to be on Marvel, like
It's
I
solid.
loved WandaVision.
It's solid.
Loki is so good. I did not love Falcon and Winter Soldier. I think I am not in the minority when I say that.
It was
enjoyable in its own way, but I feel like something happened in the writer's room or something where like
really?
Things did not add up. It just didn't add up. I think they might have had to rewrite things or something. There was speculation that they had to rewrite because of the pandemic.
Yes. That there was, I think the mom that had died, the mother figure, I
forget her name.
Yeah. Anyway, she was supposed to have played a larger part, but they cut a bunch of that out, and this is all again speculation.
Yeah, I mean, as a Marvel comic writer, I'm like, am I allowed to talk about this stuff? I don't know, but I really love those characters, so I was excited, but it was okay. I was happy to watch it because I'm like happy to consume like Marvel media, but I was like, wish it had done more. I liked what they were trying to do with Sam's character and Isaiah. I thought like, I'm very pleased and surprised that Disney is going to go there and talk about race, which is like pretty pretty bold of them, and I was really glad about that. But I wish they had actually like fleshed that out more, or there was just too much stuff going on. That's what it was. It was like, there's like this, these like rebel people, and then there's like this Isaiah guy that has a crazy mystery, and then there's this faux Captain America dude, and it was just too much stuff, I think.
That was one of the things that I wish they would have gone more into the Isaiah Washington character, because
his character is amazing.
Yeah, he got so screwed over, and I'm sorry, but you're gonna make it up by giving the man a statue? No, give them like he deserves so much more than that.
Yeah, I think they were like, we only have this many episodes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so far I think Loki is super cool. I just love stuff with like time travel and that kind of thing. It always intrigues me. Me too. I love when my brain is like, WandaVision was great. So yeah, I love all those. And then I like, like comedies. So I've been watching all the new stuff. Like I loved Rutherford Falls. I loved Girls 5 Eva. I don't know if you heard about that. That's like Tina Fey's show. So silly. I really love Mr. Mayor, which not a lot of people know. And then I actually went through this crazy period of watching, because I've never seen it from beginning to end, or even many episodes, but I watched all of Frasier. It's 11 seasons.
It's good. It's way so better than some of the other shows around that. Like if you try to go back and watch Friends, oh God.
I know Friends is hard. I know young people really are like liking Friends right now, but I wonder if they're watching it kind of like we watched old fashioned TV.
Yeah.
And they're able to distance themselves and be like, this is like outdated, right? But we watch it and it's like painful. It's like we lived through that. Yeah. I mean, it's still really funny. There's still so much funny stuff, but you're also like, Frasier also has a lot of stuff where I'm like, oh boy, this is 90s, but it's not as egregious for some reason.
My wife and I started watching Hacks the other day on HBO.
I really want to watch that.
It is fan-flippantastic. It is so good.
I've heard it's great. Jean Smart is on a roll. She was great in Mayor of Easttown.
Oh, yeah.
She was in Watchmen, which was amazing.
Her character in Watchmen was...
Oh, it was so good.
Incredible. Yes.
And not to mention, she was on Frasier.
Oh, my God.
In case you guys forget, she was also on Frasier.
So, that's rad. My wife is on a steady diet of reality TV, like 90 Day Fiancé and stuff like that. When I can pry her away to watch something like Hacks, it's great. So
I'm the big TV watcher. My husband doesn't really watch TV, but I think there's so much good writing in TV, so I find a lot of inspiration.
That's awesome. Okay, so your husband just had a movie come out on Netflix. You want to plug that real quick?
Yeah. Oh, sure. It's an animated film called Wish Dragon, and it's on Netflix, and it's actually like the #1 worldwide movie on Netflix right now. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I don't know about today, but it was yesterday. And yeah, it's really great. He has worked on this movie for like 6 years. It was a animated movies take a long time, but this one took a particularly long time because one, the pandemic, two, he wrote it. So it started way back when he was thinking about it and all this stuff. And he wrote and directed it. And so it's really like his personal, like, there's so much ownership over this movie and connection. And so I am really happy for him. It took him to China for 2 years. I moved to China for a few months.
Wow.
It was a real endeavor and I'm really proud of it. I think it's turned out so great and it's really fun for kids, but honestly, it's more fun. In my opinion, it's for adults too. Like people think it's an animated film for kids. I'm like, they'll love it on this level, but the parents will enjoy it on this level. It's great. It's fun. And I'm really glad it's doing well and people are really excited about it.
It seems like every time I watch an animated movie with my family, my wife will bawl at the drop of a hat.
She will cry during this.
Oh my
one.
gosh.
I guarantee. Yeah.
We didn't watch it together. I told her about the plot to Homebound or something. It was the movie
Onward.
That's it.
I like that movie a lot.
She started bawling. Then my mother-in-law lives like a mile down the road. She came to our house and she just walked in she has her own key. So she walks in and my wife is standing in the hallway where I was telling her about this movie I watched with the kids earlier. She's bawling. And my mother-in-law said, "What happened? Who died? What's going on?" And I told her what happened and she starts crying. So yeah. It was pretty amazing. But
I cried a lot in that.
It hits you hard. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I know you got a baby. I know you got other stuff going on. Is there anything you want to shout out before we land the plane?
Gosh, I don't think so. Just remember to pick up the last 2 issues of Silk coming out next Wednesday, or I don't know when this podcast will be released, but late June and early August. I am on Twitter and Instagram at Maurene Goo, which is where you'll find me talking about anything that is related to my books or anything else I'm working on. I am working on a few other things that I can't really talk about, but hopefully I can talk about soon. And that is it. Thank you so much for having me on here.
Awesome. Yeah. And MaureneGoo.com is your personal website and your Twitter. Oh gosh.
It's just at Maurene Goo.
At Maurene Goo.
And,
awesome.
And Instagram is the same. Mm-hmm.
Maurene, thank you so much for coming on. I've enjoyed so much talking to you. Anytime you want to come back,
likewise,
by all means, give us a holler. And you have a good summer. And it sounds like I'm signing your yearbook.
Have a great summer. See you in September.
Have a good one and enjoy the rest of your evening, okay?
Thanks. You too.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Bye.
Spaghetti! And we're back.
That's right. We are back. Back in the saddle again. Well, I hope you guys really, really enjoyed that as much as we did making it for you. And if you like what you heard and you want to hear more, you got to go check out Spoilerverse.com, because at Spoilerverse.com, we have a plethora amazing directors and artists of all walks of life and editors and writers. And oh my God, are you a lover of comic books like we are? Then there's so many amazing people from the comic book world over at Spoilerverse.com. And I highly implore you to go there and check it out.
Yeah, and while you're there, you can check out all the other podcasts on our network, like Bridges and Geekdoms and Funny Book Forensics and Haphazard Adventures and Nerds from the Crypt and so many more.
Misery
we put out
Point
episodes
Radio.
all the time. Go check all of them out. And check out all of the reviews and previews and articles we have going up every single day for you. Every day on Spoilerverse.com for you to check out and to read and to love and to like and to comment. We have a store link. If you want to help support the site, you can do it 2 ways. One, go to our Patreon, which is patreon.com/spoilercountry, or go to our store link in the middle of the site there and get a t-shirt, a face mask, a hoodie, something, look fly as hell, and help support the site when you do that, because we get $1 or $2. And, maybe you want to talk to us. If you do, you can do it obviously on all the socials, but if you go to scpod.us/Discord, you can join our public Discord server and come chat with us all day long.
I couldn't say it better myself, dude.
There you go.
You just mouthed out a ton of information at once. And really, I hope you guys enjoy what you're hearing, because we're working our butts off to bring it to you.
We are.
I guess there's only one left thing. Yeah, I'm going to go with it. There's only one left thing left to do.
What's that?
In an oceans of podcasts,
We are Cthulhu.
as Cthulhu compels you to
Spaghetti. Open the mind.
and read more.
Spaghetti.